ACLU and Lauren and everyone for being here. I also need to make two clarifications or additions to what Barry said. The first is, Barry left out his biggest skill. I think he's the best environmental reporter in Colorado Springs, and I wish he would go. I wish that was, we had an environmental week that was really good. The second is, Jason Salzman used to be an employee of Ben Cohen personally. So I think Ben Cohen, I'm not sure why I'm saying that, but it's an interesting aside. But he used to work for Ben and Jerry. Or no, Ben personally on political stuff. I want to talk about what I believe is the biggest threat to the First Amendment, and it's corporate control of the traditional media. Mm-hmm. Right now, with all due respect to the bloggers, and they've done lots of different aspects of it, a study, and I don't have the details, it was an editor, publisher, and I got the study, but in Baltimore, they looked at the subjects of the blogs and the internet and everything. Is this?
It can turn the volume turned down right on that thing right there. Yeah. Let's see.
Can you hear me without it? No.
Might want to get.
Okay.
That worked.
Okay. So what they did is they found over 75% of everything discussed in the blogs, on the internet, on TV and radio came from print. Okay? So lots of people have opinions, and lots of people do stories, and TV does a great job of telling a story with emotion, or radio can if we had radio news. We don't have very much of it in Colorado Springs. But most of the hard news, the reporting, comes from print. Right now in Colorado Springs, I'm 95% sure of this because I haven't looked at the numbers. The Gazette has more paid journalists than every other media in town combined. So, and the Independent is second, okay? But print is often where you have the real journalists doing the day-to-day stuff. Lots of people, there's the accumulators or aggregators, and you take stuff. I just was in an article, Vanguard Church, which I'm not sure why, they did a story on CNN about flying over the city to pray. And they did it, and they said, there's the Independent. And they made some disparaging comments about the Independent. Fine. You know, that's their First Amendment right, I guess, as long as they didn't fly too low. It's been cited 61 times by aggregators. This is the CNN national story. So when you look it up, you know, you can say, I was in, you know, this story, and, you know, lots of different people pick it up. But there was the CNN news reporter who did it. I want to talk a little bit about Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs is a typical small market, media market. We are Colorado Springs and Pueblo on the TV and radio side, but we're very separate from Denver. Every one of our TV stations, CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, and cable, Comcast, is owned by somebody from far away. Every single radio station in Colorado Springs, I believe the top 20 at least, except KRCC and KCMA, two nonprofit stations, are owned by big conglomerates. Print, the Gazette, and the Business Journal are owned by outsiders, outside chains. One Dolan, I think they own 60 business properties, and the Gazette owns 102 Freedom owns 102 newspapers around the country. Why does this matter? Let me give a couple examples. One of the reasons it matters is on a small issue, or small issue to some people. Freedom in 2003, they owned the Gazette and 102 papers, made a policy saying their papers, for the singles ads, all the papers used to have single ads, and we, the Independent, had some problems because we accepted ads from women seeking women and men seeking men, which back in the day was very controversial. I don't think it's that controversial today. In 2003, Freedom made a statement allowing every paper to accept men seeking women and females seeking female ads. That's a decision made by a corporation. It impacted 103 communities. I think it was the right decision, but it just shows the corporate power. Second is General Electric, which I don't know if the Comcast NBC deal has gone through.
Yeah.
But I believe now they own a share of each other, but Comcast is now the provider. But they owned NBC. NBC News, okay? The NBC is about 5% of General Electric corporate. It's a huge conglomerate. NBC is a big thing. Their weapons division is a much larger division and their engine and their commercial stuff than their media properties. So Tom Brokaw, I don't know if people know this, but they do 2 newscasts, one for the East Coast and then one for the West Coast.
Oh.
You know, because late breaking news, and most of it's the same, but they can change it and also they can improve it. It's called Synergy. On the East Coast, the earlier one, a plane went down and the cause was a GE engine. On the West Coast, 2 hours later, the problem was an engine malfunction. No mention of General Electric. Okay? And we don't know whether somebody gave them a directive or not, or somebody knew who they were, bread was buttered on. Give another example. KRK, investment bank, Kravis, something or other. They bought what I argue is probably the most influential newspaper in the United States. I loved it. They no longer own it. The Weekly Reader. Okay? They bought it. Cover story. The plight of tobacco farmers hurt by cigarette taxes.
Oh.
Cover story. Weekly Reader. Who owns, what is they also own? RJR Reynolds. Tobacco. Okay? So, one of the things that happens, he who owns the printing presses, his freedom of the press is for only those who own a printing press. But the problem is that when you have large corporation, if there's 100 papers being owned, by 100 different people, you're not having these big corporate directives. But right now, you have the potential for conglomeration. The TV industry, there's 5 states. They're all buying stuff and selling stuff. Right now, there's about to be a merger for the 2nd and 3rd largest radio programs. Citadel and, it's not Citadel, it's Clear Channel and something else. They both entered bankruptcy. But it has tremendous ramifications because if you are from the community and have to deal with the community, you come up with ideas on your own. But if you're owned by corporate interests far away, you can be directed, and it can be something like, hey, we're going to accept gay and lesbian, ads from singles who are gay and lesbian, to we're going to be doing certain, we're going to endorse so-and-so for president. We're not going to touch something else. And it's the diversity of the press that's being harmed. Right now, I want to talk a little bit about Colorado Springs.